Okay, it looks like it's slowed down on people coming in, so let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to this afternoon's webinar on Indiana's Imagery and Elevation program. So, as you may have listened to in the past, I've always said Indiana's Imagery program. So this is going to be a neat um, opportunity for Indiana in collecting both the imagery and elevation data. I do have a link on the poll that you can scan with your phone, and please take the questionnaires. We'll also have it available at the end of the presentation. As you can, please mute yourself, and then we'll also have the opportunity to ask questions at the end. And if you'd like to take yourself off mute, or you can submit via the Teams chat. So thanks again for listening in, and we'll go ahead and get started. So there's opening slide. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Oh, actually, sorry, I need to introductions. Matt, there. All right, so Sean Scholler from the Indiana Geographic Information Office, and we also have Matt from Wolpert. Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Matt Worthy, a project manager here at Wolpert, as Sean said. Happy to be managing the upcoming program from the Wolpert side, from the vendor side, collection, and all the technical stuff. So nice to see a bunch of names and faces that I've seen before, and some new ones as well. So feel free to let me know if you guys need anything. And as Sean said, we'll have time for questions at the end as well. So thanks, Sean.
And I also want to mention we have Rick from our team on the call as well. He's on our outreach group, so he's helping with outreach on the imagery elevation program and also other programs from the office. Rick and Dan, if you'd like to introduce yourselves.
Hello, Rick Rawl, outreach coordinator. I've met many of you on the list that I see here, and looking forward to hearing your information and your questions so we can continue our outreach from there.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm also outreach coordinator. My name is Dan Council, and working mostly in Northern Indiana. And I recognize a few people's names, but most of you guys seem new. So nice to meet everyone.
All right, thank you all. Okay. So let's go ahead now and proceed with the opening slide there. So let's talk about Indiana's imagery and the history of Indiana's imagery and elevation Lidar data. So as you can see, it dates back to our first collection in 2005 to 2006, and that was Indiana's first collection. We learned each program has an opportunity for a learning lesson, right? It's the takeaways, and the learning lesson for that collection was that Indiana doesn't particularly want to try and collect all the imagery or elevation data in 1 year. So what we've done now is to modify the program such that we have 3 tiers, and we have the center tier in green, and then we have the eastern side in blue as the second collection, and then the third collection will be in 2027. Now we also have, it's a 4-year program or project with Wolpert, and it's always been this way. So what it allows us to do is to have that off year for us to plan for the next collection. So that RFP process starts really a year and a half to almost 2 years in advance, but it allows then for reflights, and then it also is an opportunity for communities to leverage that as a buy-up opportunity for out of cycle for their own communities. So, but as you can see, we have 2011, 16, 21. Each of these the first 3 collections were all 1 foot. Now, along with that, we've always had the opportunity, even back to 2005, we had 12 counties participate in buy-ups to 6-inch early on, right? and from that 1 foot base product. And now what we've seen in 2021 with the enhancements of technology, sensors, GPS, onboard GPS, and such, we have the lowering of cost, and we've been able to afford now a 6-inch base product with the opportunity to buy up to 3-inch. With Lidar, the elevation product, we've had several collections. This is our offices. All the other collections have, for example, the 2016 to 2020. That was a combination of 3 local governments funding their communities, and then the NRCS funding that for the entire state of $6.2 million. So it's amazing, with the technology, the cost, and what we're able to collect and produce continues to advance. So let's take a minute here on this slide to talk about just why do we want statewide products, and for imagery and Lidar. So we all know, many of you are from local government, and you have that collection already built into your community where you're collecting imagery. But why do we need statewide? Why is it beneficial for the state to be collecting that? And that's where these quotes really help add an explanation to being able to produce a statewide, a consistent product. So let's go ahead and get in now to some of this. So we have the specifications here on this next program. So we have the base specifications, like I said, of a 6-inch base pixel resolution. We have the 4-band imagery. So I always want to point out that little neglected 4th band, right? That near infrared. It's out there. It's an extremely valuable resource when doing feature identification, feature extraction. Especially with vegetation and water and impervious features with the like. So always, and it is available with our imagery services. And then the Lidar based product is going to be a QL1. So this QL stands for Quality Level 1. That's a USGS specification from that involves a vertical accuracy of 10 vertical centimeters. And it also has a point density of 25 points per square meter. So this is a big boost from the standard QL1 quality level 1 product that the USGS says specifies with 8 points per square meter. So we'll also have a slide here talking about the various densities of point density, so in a future slide here. So let's talk about the statewide imagery and that progression. So on the left, you can see we have a Google imagery. That Google imagery, all of these images have types of imagery have a specific use case, right? So, Google imagery is great for a base map. It's not necessarily you need to know the time of year that it was collected. It's leaf on, so it looks pretty, although you can't see the buildings. So that's where you get into the statewide, the value of the statewide program, where you can see that we have leaf off. It's we know the time of collection. That was collected in February, March, or April. We know down to the month and the day of when it was collected. And then you can also see in the slide on the right where that incredible amount of detail and value comes from that enhanced 3-inch product. So that's kind of that progression from left to right, and being able to discern more and more features from the surface of the Earth. And now we talked about the resolution of imagery. Let's talk about the Lidar and the past, the history of that within the state of Indiana. So again, I mentioned that quality level 3 product. That's basically a 0.5 points per square meter, or approximately about 1 point per square meter. So there's a Lidar pulse, an XYZ collected for every square meter in the 2011. So you can kind of see things are a little dim, not as bright and as detailed. In the 2016 data set, we had 2 points per meter. That was a significant increase in detail and resolution. And then you get down to the bottom left where we have the standard QL1 product of 8 points per square meter. And then on the lower right, you have what we're actually collecting with Wolpert's sensor is a 25 points per square meter. And now you can see the incredible amount of detail in resolution in really in everything, right? So you can see the power lines popping out, and the buildings certainly stick out. So, all right. So there's a little bit about what we're going to be collecting. Now let's talk about the project itself and how communities can work with it and why. So we have authoritative data. So let's talk about what authoritative means. It means that we have that defined resolution. So Indiana has adopted the national standards for the horizontal and vertical accuracy for this program. So we know the accuracy. It's that ASPRS national standard. We have it's like I said, it's federally adopted. We also have the professional level quality QC. So that's we'll have a slide for that here coming up, but it's it's in conjunction with NDOT's team, the aerial surveys group. So, and then we also have the opportunity to leverage the USGS in their 3D elevation program. So the elevation program is not only Indiana's program; it's a federal. It's also sponsored with the USGS through the 3D elevation program. So it's a really neat opportunity for Indiana to leverage up the data that we're collecting, and the services provided by the IGIO. So here, these are we have we've already gone through I'd like to, if everybody's in person, I'd have you raise your hand if you've gone through an RFP process, right? If you have, that there's a lot to it. It takes a couple months to go through. There's planning, there's coordination. And what we have done at the state is made the contract that we went through an RFP stage. So it was open to all the bidders and suppliers to submit a proposal, and that Wolpert is the one that's been chosen this cycle. So it's a wonderful opportunity. Wolpert's collected. Actually, I didn't mention that. Many of the years before. They are well versed with Indiana, and let's see. So anyway, just going back here, we have the procurement. The benefits are for the procurement, so it alleviates that from local government. The QC portion is done by the state aerial surveys team, and the collective buying power of basically bringing communities together. And that's where this meetings like this are extremely valuable, because we can then pull if we hear from one county and another county side by side, that can help leverage the costs down and make products more affordable for everybody. So, and the other is that we ask that all the inquiries come to us. And I actually need to update this slide, Rick and Dan, but they should come to our office, and then we pass the information on, and and also if we know that your neighbor is interested, we pass that on to Wolpert, where they will supply the contract then for local government for you to sign. So. All right, so manage consistently. So here, let's just talk a minute about this. But we know you can trust that the program is going to be a standard program. We have a 4-year cycle, the 3 years of collection. We have that year of rest, and then we start the program over again. So it's stable. We know, everybody knows the negotiated price for the length of the contract. And we know that the quality level is going to be the same as it has been in the past. it's going to undertake that same review. And also the distribution, we know that it's going to be open data. So, and that's huge. So I've got a slide here to talk about, how we make the information available. It's one thing to collect it, and QC it and produce it. And how does Indiana go about making it available? So we go about making it available by 3 ways. One is by the imagery REST services. So you can directly access the imagery, the dynamic and cached imagery services. You can also download the imagery. We also have other partners with the university, Purdue and Indiana Spatial Data Portal. You might have heard of those organizations and methods of downloading. And we also have a feature service that allows you to directly download from our AWS Open Data Bucket. And then we also have web map applications that you can pull in and use. So a lot of wonderful opportunities and ways to access the imagery. All right, the timeline. Let's talk about how we get started. So January planning, really it starts, Matt, right, way before then, right? So, but in February, April, we start collecting. And then March and August, we start processing. And in each of these cycles, you can see there's about a month or so of overlap. And that's because in the vendor, Wolpert, is going to be blocking off the data, the collection, into basic thirds of within the tier. So as they start collecting imagery, they'll bundle into a block that imagery and then start the ortho processing process. And once that's complete, then we start the QA/QC portion for that block. And as they continue north, they'll continue collecting imagery and then build in the next block and the subsequent block after that. So that's where it allows us to build in this consistent, streamlined data flow of data. And also for those communities that buy up, where they're welcome to participate in the QA/QC of the imagery as well. And so, all right, let's see, program partners. Well, that's speaking of partners. So we have the Indiana Geographic Information Office. We have state agencies. We have INDOT. Obviously, they're participating in the QA/QC. They've participated in funding in the past. And our the DNR, Indiana DNR, is actually helping fund. They've submitted a budget item for this, collecting or for classifying the Lidar data. So we'll talk about the classification for vegetation and buildings, and so they're helping with that funding. We also have federal agencies, the NRCS and USGS. We have local governments. Obviously, we've been relying on you to buy up to higher resolutions, additional products, and such. So, all right, and here let's talk about the USGS. So this USGS allows us, Indiana, to leverage it similarly how local government leverages the state program. So we are able to work with the USGS to receive grant funding for some of the cost of the data of the Lidar data, and then we also have it's a cooperative agreement, so it allows us to maintain that Indiana control of the selection of the vendor and those specifications. We also then can rely on the USGS for that QA/QC and also the base product distribution. So similarly how local government relies on Indiana, the state of Indiana, for the imagery distribution and quality control. So, and all right, Matt, I'm going to hand it over to you for a little bit.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm actually going to share my screen real quick, Sean. Should just be the same thing, but that way I don't have to call you out.
Great.
Can you see it?
Yes.
I made Sean move all his screens around. Yeah, so just to reintroduce myself, Matt Worthy, project manager here at Wolpert. Wolpert is what we call one of the fastest growing AEG firms in the world. And we throw around that acronym very flippantly, but AEG stands for Architecture, Engineering, and Geospatial. Of that three-sided triangle. Geospatial makes up at Woolpert more than half of the company in terms of personnel and projects executed. So we like to pride ourselves in being a geospatial company first, but also offering these architecture and engineering services as well, being a full service company. So I could go into a little bit of detail about Woolpert. A lot of it's up here on the screen. The big takeaways, though, are that we, like I said, offer that full range of service. We have the expertise on not just doing these types of projects, but doing them in Indiana in particular. As Sean mentioned, we were the prime vendor for the state of Indiana on not this last cycle of the program, but the cycle before that. So up until about 2020. We're happy to be back in the state of Indiana, at least from our little group here at Woolpert. We've always been in the state of Indiana, so Woolpert's had an office in Indianapolis since about 1981. And then even when we weren't the prime vendor for the state, we were also executing contracts in Indiana, mainly in the private sector and with different airports and the like. So happy to be back in Indiana, like I said. Really excited about this program specifically. As Sean mentioned, the program is broken into 3 cycles. There's also that 4th year in 2028 for any additional buy-ups that people might have and start planning for the recycling of the state and starting in 2029. Sean mentioned that we break the state into blocks as well. So as you can see on the left side of the screen, we have the state broken into the state tiers 1, 2, and 3. And then it's a little bit faint in these images, but you can see where the northern quarter of the state is 1 block for each tier. The southern quarter of the state is 1 block, and then 2 in the middle as well. Those are roughly broken at county boundaries too, which helps us segment the data further for individual counties. And if anybody wants to segment it further than that, we can also talk about that. But what this does, as Sean mentioned, is allow us to push the data through earlier in the process. So we're not waiting for, of course, the entire tier to be flown. We can actually push forth entire blocks, entire counties, or if we wanted to, just individual flight lines. And that's really important in this program, not just because we're flying imagery, but we're also flying Lidar. I'll talk in a minute about how we're collecting that data, but one of the big, hurdles in this type of work is breaking the workflow out so that nobody is waiting on additional data. When we're doing the orthorectification process of the imagery, it's best to have the latest elevation data to orthorectify that too, which comes from the Lidar. So we try to break these into as small of chunks as possible so that we can push them through the workflow and get you guys data sooner in the process as well. I don't want to take away either from the work that the DNR is doing on the Lake Michigan coastline up on the northern end of the state. This really only applies to counties and municipalities in that tier 3 or in the 2027 tier. But there is a cost sharing component there for anybody that's interested in 3-inch imagery as well. The DNR is collecting 3-inch imagery over the AOI that you see on the right side here. And so, adjacent municipalities, counties, and the like can take advantage of that as well. And I should say that's happening every year, including 2028. So what makes Woolpert's collection special? One of the things, aside from just having the experience that we do, is that each of our aircraft, and you can see one here on the screen, is fitted with dual ports. And so those ports, if you were to look just past the wingspan towards the back of the airplane, there are 2 holes cut into the belly of the plane. One of those will house an imagery sensor, the other will house a Lidar sensor. What this allows us to do is fly both data sets simultaneously. So we don't have to fly with an imagery sensor, come back later on, fly with a Lidar sensor, and then there may be some discrepancy between those 2 time periods in the data. Normally you can make those close enough that it's not too noticeable, but the big benefit here is that we can fly one time and collect both. That not only improves the currency of the data because they're collected at the same time, but also allows us to register them together, make them combined in a sense, fuse them together, and make the best of the accuracy in both data sets, because we know that they were collected under the same conditions, the plane was at the same angle when they were collected, and so on and so forth. This, from a LiDAR standpoint, also allows us to colorize the point cloud and make it look very pleasing and extra use out of it when it comes to AI, machine learning type feature extraction from the LiDAR data itself. So the state of Indiana has a lot of control points already set and surveyed across the state. The state DOT has done a really great job of maintaining these. Wolpert's going to make use of a lot of these existing survey control points for our ortho and LiDAR collection starting next spring. We actually will densify them slightly in some areas, but again, one of the big benefits of collecting our data simultaneously is that we can reuse, say, imagery control points for LiDAR calibration and the such. So I didn't want to skip over talking about survey for those of us that come from a survey background. We take that survey data, and I'm going to speak to orthos first and then talk to LiDAR second, but we take that surveyed control data and triangulate and control our imagery to the ground, to those survey points. Then that goes through our ortho processing steps where we process it to the ground, again, that elevation data that we've taken from the LiDAR, and then ortho rectify it, stitch them together, seamline them, mosaic them, and make pretty pictures. And that's what a lot of us like, right? We do this in a software that Wolpert has built internally called SmartView Connect, or SVC. This is a web app type situation that we can give out to all of our clients as well. But what we do is go in, mark it up as you see here on the screen, and then we come back and use photo editing techniques to make that data look as we all expect it to look. We also make this easier in that when we provide this data to clients via SmartView Connect, we can give, like Sean and his team, access to this data. They can come in again via the browser, and we actually give them clues or pinpoints to drive to say, here are the things like bridges, which you see on the screen, that normally give ortho rectification projects the hardest time, right? Because the bridges are elevated, they get skewed on the data. And so we actually drive our clients to those areas so that they can check and make sure that we have done the corrections that we say we are going to do. This also is possible via seam lines as well. If anybody's ever done an imagery project, you know that seam lines between images are one of the hard points as well. We actually provide seam lines so that you can run those edges too. LiDAR processing is very similar. As we take that data off the aircraft, it gets calibrated to the control that we set for it. In LiDAR, this is not just horizontal, such as the imagery, but it's also vertical because it's an elevation product. So we do it both in the X, Y, and Z coordinates. Then we classify and filter the data, take it from its raw intensity values, process it into categories, classes, ground, vegetation, buildings, water, bridges. There's a handful of classifications that are required for USGS QL, and then also some that the state has the option to buy up as well. Then one of the last things we do is hydro flatten the data. So what this does is take the points that reflect off of hydro surfaces or water essentially, which come back with a lot of noise and a lot of variance in the elevations because the water is moving. So we take that data up to a specified tolerance, flatten it so that it's pleasing and relatively easy to use and not just noise. But then it also maintains the monotonicity, which is a really big word to say. It flows downhill. So you can see, like over on the far right-hand side, we have a river that is theoretically flowing downhill to its lower elevation. So we make that monotonic so that it flows downhill ever so slightly. And this actually helps us in future projects such as the USGS 3D hydrography program, or 3DHP, when we're doing our elevation derived hydrography projects. Like the imagery products, we can also load the digital elevation model from the LiDAR into SmartView Connect and serve this up to our clients and anybody doing a review so that they can mark it up in the same way, use those same pinpoints such as bridges. Seam lines isn't so much of an issue, but inner swath, or where your swaths of LiDAR line up, sometimes can cause oddities in the data, but it follows the same general process of review and markup and then correction and then redelivery. Real quick, too, I wanted to talk about a couple of value-added data sets. This is what we would commonly refer to as buy-ups. Some buy-ups, which I think Sean has a slide later on in the presentation, some of them have negotiated contract per square mile rates as far as a cost component goes, but then others, being that they're highly customizable or highly dependent on what you need or where you live or what the geography is like, we don't have contracted rates for those. But just a handful of them, contouring both 1 foot and 2 foot on the state program. If anything outside of that, we can also help you identify that solution as well. Impervious surfaces, these would be your things like sidewalks, roads, parking lots, anything like that, and then building outlines as well. A couple other ones that are derived from our data could be your elevation derived hydrography, which I mentioned previously, sidewalks or ADA compliance. This would be obviously sidewalks or like the ramps at intersection, crosswalks and the like. And then just general land cover as well. This is slightly different land cover is than the impervious surfaces because we're not just classifying the impervious surfaces themselves. We're actually classifying the entire land cover, basically making the entire thing covered, no white space, as my teacher would have said. In addition to the land cover, actually Woolpert does a pretty novel geospatial project in the state of Ohio called the CAUV program, where each year during leaf on conditions, we also fly cropland for tax reimbursement purposes for farmers in the state of Ohio. This is similar to our land cover process, but it really focuses around crops themselves, the types of crops and stuff like that. Again, that is a leaf on or in the middle of the summer type collection, not leaf off, which is what the state of Indiana is collecting starting next spring. So I will throw it back over to you, Sean. You're welcome to steal the screen back and happy to answer any questions that anybody has at the end of the presentation. So thanks.
All right. So great. Thank you, Matt. There. Put back on. All right. So yeah, this slide is kind of a summary report of the USGS. So the USGS, like I said, for the Lidar is going to be partnering and participating in the collection and the review of the Lidar data. So this is just a report that standard report that they'll be generating and working through. And now let's here. So a couple things. Let's talk about how we go about collecting or that coordination in the collection. So, and this is what is extremely valuable for the state of Indiana, for Woolpert, and ultimately for everybody, right? But is making sure that when we put a plane in the air, that it's collecting imagery and products that are going to be accepted for downstream processing. So and so through this, I rely on you, right? You're out and about in various parts of the state, and our team has grown, so we do have a little bit more reach now. But we don't know what's going on necessarily in southern Indiana or on the northeast or northwest part. So that's where working with folks that are that live in the area and can report the snow conditions, the flooding conditions, all these things can make or break the collected imagery. So just making sure that the conditions are right and prime before the airplane goes up and starts collecting is a wonderful opportunity. So please, if you're interested in let me know, send me an email, and I'll put you on the list to coordinate with. So. All right, and here let's just give a slide and credit to the NDOT aerial surveys team. Here they review, like we've like we've said, the imagery. So they review those seam lines to making sure that the imagery is from image to image is aligned well and properly. So we also produce the bridge decks. So there's a queue of bridges that they'll go through and look at the bridges, make sure there isn't any warp there or lean and distortion in the bridge as there may be. Total balances, overall image quality, and then the Lidar. They're going to be reviewing the digital elevation model that Matt had in a previous slide there. So. All right, let's talk a little bit about lessons learned from the previous collection. So, like I said in the first slide, I think opening slide, we always learn things. So what have we learned from 21 to 24? We've learned about the data acquisition and availability. So making sure that we have the resources up front, they're ready to go in February. As soon as that sun angle gets above 30 degrees, with enough time in the day to justify sending aircraft up. We start in. That's where it's been right around the middle of February is when we can get started collecting imagery. So assessing the risks for those environmental factors. So we can't control the weather. We can't control the mobilization again, and we can control the communication and managing the collection and making sure that the products that we start collecting early are with good ground conditions. So avoiding the flooding, avoiding excessive snow, and the like. So also just proactive measures in troubleshooting. So that's where Matt showed off that SVC viewer for QA/QC. So we've been working with vendors in the past now to have an online viewer and also making that as a resource for those folks that communities that buy up to image a higher resolution. So if they'd like to participate in that visual review, you certainly may. The processing and quality control there, and then just that data pipeline and delivery. So like Matt said, and we mentioned earlier that we block out the data into blocks and start that process data stream through the life of the data. And all right, so let's talk about price. What is the cost for local government and for county or for cities? So what I haven't broken out on this slide for cities, but here's just give you an idea of the costs for 3-inch buy-up for communities. So we have the base cost of $140 in cycle. So that's for 400 square miles or greater. And basically that's the for counties. So for any county of any size, it's going to be $140 per square mile. What Indiana does is that since it's in cycle, we discount that collection, that cost, by our unit cost of $40. And so that ends up with a $100 per square mile cost for in-cycle imagery. And then you can see the out of cycle. So if a community would like to, you don't have to wait till your turn to buy up. You can also buy up or buy 6-inch imagery or buy up to 3-inch anytime during these 4 years. So it's not like you have to wait till if you're on the western side of the state till 2027 to acquire imagery using this program. You can use the contract at any time. And then we also have the opportunity for 2-foot contours, like Matt had a visual slide there dedicated to contours of the pricing for those products as well. So, and I think that wraps up the presentation. So what I'm going to do is allow you to take yourself off mute, or you can put your questions into the Teams chat, and we can answer. Matt and I can answer them. And I'm also going to open up the Mentimeter poll. Has everybody had a chance to complete it, I hope? Okay. So do we have any questions from the group? All right, doesn't sound like it. Matt,
We did such a
you did
good
an
job,
awesome
Sean.
job.
Yeah.
All right. So let's just take a minute to talk about some these questions. So which resolution do you need for your orthoimagery? And it's actually, I'm surprised nobody responded with sub 3-inch, because I know there are some communities out there acquiring sub 3, but maybe not on this webinar. So all right, but yes, as we can see, 3-inch is is almost yeah, quite a bit higher in terms of need. So yeah, the state that's where we would like to offer a 3-inch statewide product. Although with our contract and with the cost, we're producing that 6-inch and allowing communities and others to buy up to the higher resolution. Let's talk about the importance of Lidar now. So here, this is really interesting. So how do we? Looks like, I guess I don't know how many, but the weighting, but it looks like the number one response is road surface. So I actually anticipated buildings as probably being the number one pick, but yeah, the road surface. So that's really interesting to see. Buildings is second, vegetation is third, and that's where it's going to be really nice and beneficial for us with the classification that's going to be applied to the Lidar data for building and vegetation. So, and then electric utilities and rails on down the line. So, and that's where the classification. So what that means is that we're actually assigning a category to the point cloud. So it's no longer an XYZ, it's actually an XYZ with the intensity, and it's an XYZ with the classification of what that point reflected off of. So if it reflected off of a building, or if it was reflected off of the bare earth surface, then we classify it as such. So what other data do you get excited about? So here, building outlines. All right, there we go. Impervious surface contours. All right. I thought, I thought contours might have been toward the higher end there on the list. Matt, what did you think?
Yeah, I'm not surprised that buildings and impervious are high up there. Contours, is right there with them. I wanted to mention too that, like we see right here on the screen and like we showed on my slides earlier, if there is something else that has a geospatial component to it and you think it could be extracted from this data, I would impress upon everybody to, reach out to Sean, reach out to myself and the other Wolpert and state counterparts, because we can always talk through that process. There's no way to, conclusively list all of the products that we could derive from this data, but we tried to hit the high ones. So I'm not really surprised at the high hitters here either, Sean.
Yeah. All right, and last question. So how do you need to access the imagery products? That's interesting. Everybody likes dynamic imagery services. So the neat thing about the imagery services, there's two types. One is the cache, so that's a 3-band pre-generated. It has levels already set to it, so you can you can quickly zoom in and out. Although it's a compressed product, and you can't zoom into an infinite resolution. So you're bounded by the the specifications that were applied to the caching process. And the dynamic, on the other hand, hits those original products. So that's where we have the state of Indiana we supply both the dynamic and cached, but the dynamic again hits those original products. We can also visualize the near infrared. We can toggle between the hillshade, shaded relief, slope, and other elevation products so very easily. So that's where the dynamic really wins out, and having that flexibility for the user. So and then interesting, yeah, download. This is actually about I don't know, Matt, what do you this is actually interesting that they're neck and neck. Usually download has been winning on these surveys that we've been pushing out. So that's another thing is through this program, the education and making awareness of the imagery services that are available. So you don't necessarily have to, unless your bandwidth is a limiting factor, or your software. We have the imagery services that are available for you to integrate into your application. But certainly we understand that always the forever need to be able to download a specific image and work with it. So that's where, and then we also have the county mosaic product, which is also it's available for download, but that's where we take all of the tiles, the thousands of tiles per county, and add those into one file. So that way, if you're a user looking for, you just want the entire county, you can easily access that product and download. So all right. Any questions come in?
No, I have not seen any questions come in. You should be able to unmute your microphones now if you want to ask a question, though.
With that, I suppose we can wrap up just a few minutes early. So, Matt, do you have anything else you'd like to say, or Rick?
No, I'll just
Dan?
add, Sean, like I said at the top of the presentation, if anybody has any questions, maybe anything specific they don't want to share with the entire group or what have you, feel free to reach out. I feel like between Wolpert and the state, we're a pretty easygoing bunch. So, just let us know what needs you have, what problems you might have had or might think can be solved with this data. And we're always happy to talk through those. So don't be shy.
Thank you, everybody. Have a nice afternoon, and we will also make the presentation available, the recording and slides available. So if you'd like to pass them along to others that were not able to make this presentation, you can do so with that. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.